Hello family, how's everything going? It's been a wild week. Actually, it's been a wild about 2 weeks now. But this week has been like incredibly crazy. I really apologize for not being able to put up any new videos this week. There are a ton of things that have been going on. And the first thing that was what happened, or why the video didn't go up for this week, is that I had a memory card because I just purchased the Canon G7X. I had the Rebel Canon Rebel before, and I couldn't figure out how to get this thing going, so I just went and purchased the G7X, and it came with a memory card. I used that memory card, and I had 2 weeks of vlogs on it that I've been trying to get out for about 2 weeks now, and I haven't been able to retrieve it off the memory card. It would show on the camera, and when I would try to transfer it, it just wouldn't go through, and I was going back and forth for some time trying to get it done, and I just couldn't get it done. Come to find out, the memory card was a bad memory card. I lost everything. It just eventually went blank. I mean, I had so much on that card. Sorry, that's the baby. But I had so much on that card, and it really, oh my god, so much that I wanted to share, and a lot of memories for us that I just won't be able to get back. Well, I'm not sure if I won't be able to get it back, because I just found someone, a company that say that they can try to retrieve the information off of a damaged card. They said it takes 2 to 3 weeks, so I dropped it off yesterday, and I don't know what the end result will be. He said he may not be able to, but we'll see what happens. That was the first thing. And I mean, there's just been one thing after the other with the kids. My son Deshaun, he got injured while at school. Now, I can't remember if I went into, or I said I was going to go into, you know, my children one by one, their stories, because each one of them have their own story. But I'm not sure if I did. But Deshaun, he had a history of a subdural hematoma, which is bleeding on the brain. That happened when he was 5 weeks old. And he's been through so many different therapies to help him to develop skills that he did not have. He was very delayed, but by the grace of God, he has developed tremendously, more than we could even imagine. The fact that he's getting ready to go to first grade is huge. But he got injured on the playground in school, and he hit his head, and it was just the most gut-wrenching thing ever, because we know where he came from. We know how far he's come, and we just don't ever want him to go backwards. But Deshaun, we ended up having to take him to the emergency room. First of all, none of the teachers knew what happened. Not his classroom teacher, because he wasn't with her. There are different teachers on the playground. And no one knew that he got injured. He didn't tell anyone, but when he came back to his classroom, his teacher knew something was different, and she started questioning him, and he said he had a headache. That's it. He didn't tell her what happened. I don't know if he didn't want to get his friend in trouble. I'm not sure, because his friend had pulled his legs while he was coming down the slide, and that's how he hit his head. But as soon as my husband picked him up, the teacher explained that he said he wasn't feeling well. And she had him put his head down on the table, and when he came in the car, I said, oh no, something is, before my husband can even tell me, I said, something is wrong with this kid. He's not looking, you know, the way he's always energized. And by the time we got home, he started getting really lethargic and not himself at all, just like moping, and then he wanted to lay down and go to sleep. And I'm like, you know, I said maybe he just had a really long day. So I ended up, I had bought him a special cookie, his favorite color cookie, that day, and with sprinkles on it. And so I said, I was in the kitchen, I said, Deshaun, oh, mommy forgot, I bought you a special cookie because you've been doing so well in school. And he said, I don't want it, mommy. And I said, you don't want it? So I walked into the living room. I said, what do you mean you don't want it? You never refuse a cookie. And he said, I don't want it. I said, why don't you want the cookie, Deshaun? He said, my head is hurting. I'm like, why is your head hurting? He said, I fell down I hurt my head on the playground. So I asked him to explain what happened. He said one kid pushed him from the top of the slide, and the other kid, when he came down, grabbed his legs and pulled him off, and he hit his head. So I said, why didn't you explain this to your teacher? Well, he didn't, and that's typical Deshaun. You know, he's a tough kid, and you know, he always tried to mask his pain, to hide his pain. So ended up, at that point, he started to get worse. I mean, like instantly, things just start happening really quick from that point. He started to look like really drained. He couldn't keep his eyes open. I said, okay, I'm rushing him to the emergency room. My husband rushed home, took the baby and the rest of the kids from me. My daughter wasn't home yet, but he waited for her. And I rushed off to the hospital with Deshaun. We went to the hospital. They checked him out, did a neurological testing. I wanted them to do a CT scan. They said that he didn't need one at that time. Well, long story short, he ended up having a fever of almost 103, and they gave him some Motrin for it. And the doctor wanted to check because they couldn't figure out why he was having the fever, and they said he could have had a mild seizure, which Deshaun, because of the head injury, had a history of seizures. But he hasn't had one since he was an infant. So with all that being said, the doctor ended up examining his throat and his ears, you know, routine stuff, just to make sure there wasn't any infections anywhere else causing the fever. And the doctor ended up puncturing the ear canal, and there was blood filled in his ear. And I'm like, oh my God, like really? Like one thing after the other. And you know, they stated that it was nothing to really worry about, but I'm not going to take it as that, because throughout the middle of the night, he continued to have the fever after they discharged him. I'm sorry, they did discharge him. They didn't do the CT scan because they said, well, there's a lot of radiation. It's like 100 and something times of X-ray of radiation in his little body. So unless he really had any neurological signs of anything wrong, they didn't want to do it. So, he came home, ended up having fever all through the night. I had to, between putting him in the tub to cool him down with cool water, rubbing him down with rubbing alcohol, giving him the Motrin, Tylenol. It just kept coming back no matter what I did. At one point I woke him up. My husband went to go and wake him up to check him throughout the night, and there was blood all over his pillow from his ear. Like, I'm like, you know, at that point it was already a long, rough week, and now this, and you know, I'm like, okay, I could deal with things that happen with us, but like my kids, like, you know, I don't want anything happening to my kids. It's like you're helpless when your kids are not feeling well. So anyway, ended up taking him back to the hospital today. I was going to take him to his hospital because yesterday, since it was an emergency, I took him to the nearest hospital. Now the hospital he goes to is in Long Island, and I was going to take him there. So my husband came, he was out, and he came to stay with the baby and Derek, and I rushed off to the hospital with him. His fever at that point was 102.6. And we rushed off to the hospital. Got to, on the way to the hospital, he started throwing up like crazy in the car 3 times. Mind you, he hasn't been wanting to eat or anything, so I've just been trying to keep him hydrated by giving him little bits of fluids at a time. Now that freaked me out. I didn't know if I should call 911, like get an ambulance, like to meet me where I was. But my mother and my husband just said, just go to the nearest hospital, which ended up being the same one I went to yesterday. So I rushed him there. I didn't even park my car. I just jumped out where there was an ambulance in front of the hospital and dashed in with him, because he was like completely lethargic and like he wasn't talking much at all or anything. They rushed him in right away. His fever was 103.2, and you know, they gave him Motrin, they gave him oh, I can't remember the name of the other thing. Just I can't remember it. To stop him from throwing up, they gave him another liquid, and they gave him Pedialyte. It was a frozen pop of Pedialyte that he would be able to eat slowly. And so they ended up, because the first thing I said is that my son needs a CAT scan and we're not leaving until he gets one. And they ended up doing the CAT scan, and thank you Lord, he doesn't have any more injuries to his brain, because that was my biggest concern. And with throwing up after a head injury, that can indicate that something bad is going on in the head. So I'm happy that wasn't the case, but they still can't figure out why in the world this fever is going on. They said it could be viral. They didn't see any signs of anything going on, but they said it could be something viral. So they told me to continue the antibiotics and Motrin. If the fever progresses, to bring him back in, which I would not bring him there. I would bring him to his hospital. But I did call because I want ENT to take a look at that ear, because it's still bleeding and it's over 24 hours now. So I will be taking him back to get the ear checked. So all of this is why I have not been able to upload any new vlogs. I'm definitely going to get back on my game. The kids, Derek and Savaya, have been asking, like, are we going to video? Are we going to video? And I just have not been able to do it. Because there's so much going on with me losing the videos I had, and then Deshaun, and then there was an issue with Derek earlier this week, and then I had some issues with Savaya's school because she's going to be leaving that school, and it's just been a whole bunch of things going on. So I really apologize once again, but we will be back. I'm not sure if we'll be able to get something up this weekend, but I'm going to do my best to do that. Depending on how Deshaun is feeling, I will give you an update. And I thank everyone for being patient with us and for understanding. And we will see you soon. We thank you for your support. We know some of you have watched every single video we put up, and we really appreciate that. So we will be back. See you soon. You can give us a thumbs up, share some of our videos with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you can get all of the notifications of new videos. All right, take care. Have a great day.